Welcome to Municipal Affairs 2024 Year in Review. Today, we're reflecting on a year that has been as challenging as transformative for the municipalities. This past year, our cities, towns, villages, and rural communities have been at the forefront of some of the most pressing issues of our time. From navigating the financial ripple effects of economic uncertainty to embracing innovation in infrastructure and housing. All the while, local governments have proven that they are more than just the closest to the people. They are the problem solvers, the innovators, and often the ones who make things happen when higher levels of government fall short. And joining me today to look back on 2024 in the province of Nova Scotia is Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities President Pam Mood. Are you passionate about local governance and municipal issues? Do you believe in the power of community-driven conversations? Then join us at the Cross Border Network, where we bring together voices from across Canada to shine a spotlight on the challenges and the triumphs of our municipalities. But we need your support to keep the conversation going. Visit crossborderinterviews.ca today to show your support by backing the show monthly or making a one-time annual donation. Your contribution will help us grow and expand our reach, bringing important stories to even more listeners across the nation. Together, we can make a difference. Together, we can amplify the voices of local communities. Together, we can shape a brighter future for all. Cross Border Network, where local matters and your support counts. Visit us today at crossborderinterviews.ca. President, thank you so much for sitting down with me this morning and talking about the last 12 months in Nova Scotia from a municipal perspective. And I want to start by asking a simple question I've asked all the presidents who've come on the show, and you're no exception. How would you describe the state of municipalities in the province of Nova Scotia at the end of 2024, Pam?
Oh, wow. I would say the state of municipalities in 2020, at the end of 2024 would be, I think we're on the right path. I think that we've accomplished a lot as municipal units. We have a lot more to be done. I believe that a lot is work with the province that has to be done because a lot of our issues, of course, not just province-wide, but Canada-wide, are provincially and federally mandated, and we just need to work together, and we'll be fine.
Well, that's good to hear. I want to start by talking about the most recent big event that happened in the province of Nova Scotia, and that is the re-election of Tim Houston and the Progressive Conservatives as the government of Nova Scotia. During the election, and since the election, since we're a few days after the election, did municipalities hear anything from Tim Houston, the premier-elect, the premier of Nova Scotia, that gives you hope going into 2025?
I think that, everyone was listening, of course, and we do have a supermajority that happened. So, just listening on the information around healthcare. And again, we're municipalities, so not mandated for this, but we are the government closest to the people, as everyone knows. So we are dealing with the folks on the ground that are worried about these very things. So things like healthcare and housing, mental health, those pieces of the equation, we were listening closely to. So, we'll see what the follow-up is. And of course, the advocacy work and chatting with the different departments. So hopefully, what was promised comes through. I would also say that, nothing happens overnight. And I think, promises get made without the understanding, I think by the general public really, that, it takes time to work through these things. So, we're willing to give them time and we'll put in the effort on our side and see what happens.
Well, time is a constant, and it's always something that's going to be evolving. It's always going to be something that you're always going to be putting into place. But the issues that municipalities are faced with today are today's issues. They're not 20 days from now or a year from now's issues. They're today's issues. So how do you balance that need for giving time with the realities of your residents are concerned today about the state of healthcare, the state of infrastructure, the state of housing in the province?
Oh my goodness, you hang on tight for dear life. There's And I know it sounds funny, but that's exactly what we need to do because when we sit in these seats, we understand how much time it takes. It takes time to get a stop sign up for crying out loud. It's so imagine trying to fix healthcare and, coastal protection, the big things that come our way. So, it's a matter of, um, I believe, helping the government share the word on what's being done. So that means, in my opinion, that we need to be open with each other. We need to be able to share with the public the process, the ongoing process. I say this as president, but I also say it as a mayor. In our region, the successes we've seen with the big issues that we face are because we have actually gotten out to the public and made sure that they see every single step of the way. And we've found ways to engage. It doesn't mean that, what someone says is going to end up on the floor and be the answer to the question, but we have to make sure that the public's engaged and that means information, education, those things that kind of I don't want to say soften the blow, but help folks understand that, what, you need to give us a minute because these are huge issues. So that's where I come from, I guess.
You talk about engagement, and this has been a year that the voters of Nova Scotia have had been engaged, whether it be the municipal elections and now the provincial elections. How do you continue that engagement? How does NSFM, I always get the acronym wrong, NSFM, continue that engagement? Is it just the local mayors and councillors who have to do that, or does the broader organization have a role to play in that engagement, whether it be with the provincial government or with the residents of Nova Scotia?
I think it's a mix of both. And what a great question. If we want people to be engaged, we all need to be on board.
Yeah.
We all need to be doing our part. NSFM does a tremendous job of getting the members information on absolutely everything. They're amazing communicators on all the issues. They want their members to know what's what. Where do we stand? Are we talking to the government? How is that going? Those types of things. It kind of filters down to the membership, and we're talking mayors, wardens, council members, staff. Everyone is on board or should be on board to get those uh, pieces of information out there so that people are engaged and they're asking questions. And I'll say this as well that it's difficult. I feel like at the local level, um, I'm a pretty brave soul. Nothing scares me. I'm doing it for the right reason with the right heart, as most people are. But we're standing up there in front of the public like we're targets, and everything comes our way because people see us and they know us. They see us in the grocery store and walking Main Street to grab a coffee, those types of things. So little conversations along the way, but we are the targets for it, and that's okay. Some people shy away from it. When you shy away from it, the engagement is going to be negative. When you put it all out there and say, what are you thinking? Then it's going to be much easier. So we've had successes in that area. Just draw the people in and help them know this is for you, and we're going as fast as we can.
But the analogy is crap always rolls downhill. And I hate to use that word, but it is. You are the closest to the people. The federal government dictates what the provinces can do, the provinces
Yeah,
dictate what the municipalities can do. And you are the closest, you are in the grocery stores, and you deal with the
exactly.
people one on one. How do
It's
you
great to get,
engage?
it's great to get,
Go ahead.
when you get elected, you get a free case of toilet paper so you can clean up some of that crap that rolls downhill. Just saying.
But how do you engage with residents when you do find yourself with a target on the back? Because you are the closest to the people, so they know who you are. They will know who you are rather than their MLA or their MP because you're in your community 24/7. You're not in Ottawa, you're not in Halifax to your job, you're in your community 24/7. Have you seen a change in attitude towards municipal elected officials in 2024?
In 2024, for me, it's been a little bit better. I don't know why that is. I'm pretty blunt. I'm honest with people. It's funny, folks will always say, you can't find an honest politician. So, when you get one, and I'm pretty honest to the point that, I'm too blunt sometimes. But, I think we owe that to the people to be honest. And it's the engagement piece is mostly on social media, which makes it easy for folks to attack. Not just attack, it's ugly, it's abuse on every level. But I've always said this, and I hope my counterparts and colleagues get a little bit or have a little bit of this. I just think that the harder people attack, the more they need us to do the job for the right reasons in the right manner. So it's how you look at it, I guess.
I agree. I want to turn to a recent event. In the midst of this election, the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities was also holding their convention, and it was coinciding with the election, which you were elected president. First off, congratulations. I guess I should have started that
Thank
off at the
you.
beginning. But what did you hear as the newly, I guess I can say reelected, but not reelected because there was a bit of a time for a difference.
Yeah.
What did you hear from a president's perspective from the delegates at the conference this year?
I heard as far as issues go, it's funny because they are mostly provincially mandated issues, which again is great for NSFM because our job is the advocacy role, educating our members, informing our members. So, it kind of goes part and parcel with what we're doing. Coastal protection was a huge issue. Housing, again, all the same things that we're dealing with across the entire country. Infrastructure was a big deal. It's always a big deal, aging infrastructure, doing more with less. The issue of how do I say this? How do we find new and braver ways to bring funds into our municipal units? Because right now the major way we do that is through taxation, and people can't bear any more load. So how do we find our way around that as well? So lots of issues.
Have you had conversations with anyone in the government? I know we're still probably about 3 weeks since you were elected, but has that reach out happened to the new incoming Houston government or re-elected Houston government to start that conversation of finding those new sources of streams, or are municipalities left dealing with this on their own?
I don't think we'll be left to deal with it on our own. I think, the province is more than willing to sit down at the table. I'll tell you, as we tape this podcast, in 2 hours, they will be sworn in as a new cabinet. So we're waiting to see, who sits in what seat. Um, it'll be great to find that out, put those connections together and sit down. So they understand. It's the same with the province. It's always taxes. So how else do we get those funds in there? They're in the same boat we are.
Yeah. And there's at the end of the day, there's only one taxpayer, and we can't get blood out of a stone after attacking it for so many times. Um, we talk about some of the issues and challenges that municipalities have been facing, what you were hearing. I recently just had the pleasure of speaking to the CAO of Truro, just for another show that I do, and he was talking about the RCMP costs that are being sort of municipalities are faced with that ongoing challenge of the RCMP costs, but also RCMP recruitment. How do you see NSFM dealing with that as a federal issue, but also as a provincial issue as well? Because justice, police, RCMP, it's in a lot of wheelhouses.
It is. You're absolutely right. Everyone touches on this. We do, by virtue of my position, I would sit on the FCM board. So, those conversations have to happen there. I believe they already are, deep in conversation with the province, with the federal government. How do we maneuver our way through this? I can't give you a number, but,
Yeah.
the costs are astronomical. We did have a session on policing at the conference. So, just the ability to put everything on the table, hash it out and come out with the best answers. I love that way of doing things. Just sit down, figure out where we are, have everybody put their voice in, and this is a tough one, but as opposed to thinking what's best for me, it's what's best for the overall picture. And sometimes, that's difficult because it's our individual jobs as mayors and leaders in our community to figure out, what's best for my people. I'm also a huge fan of a rising tide floats all boats. So, what's working for one is certainly going to help us figure out a way to work with others. So that's a huge issue that we have to tackle, and I think everyone will be at the table.
So, what's the magic fix? I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot here by asking that question, but how can the federal government and the provincial government work with municipalities to address this issue? Because it's not the first time I've heard about it from the CAO of Truro. It's not going to be the last time, because as I speak to municipal leaders from across this country, especially in Nova Scotia with the tragic events that happened a few years ago, it is on the top of minds for a lot of people, that public safety aspect. What can the province and the federal government do tomorrow to help, I hate to say ease the minds of people, but help find a solution that will bring this to a, not a conclusion, but a sort of moment where people go, okay, now we can start moving forward rather than trying to solve the issue.
I think always the first part of solving anything or getting towards that is for everyone to sit down and none of the, and I'm not saying this would happen, but none of the, it's not my job, or it's not going to, I can't help you, or it's going to cost too much money. We have to put all those things on the table. And the first thing is, again, we come back to what is, where is this affecting us? And it's affecting us at a local level. So sit down, we have to sit at that table, not just the major players, but we have to have the municipal units at the table, sitting down saying, this is what we're dealing with. This is what we need to run a police agency in our town. We're always short. I spent my first 18 years of my career with the RCMP. We have a great deal, with them. But that doesn't mean that we'll be able to afford it forever. So, they're a great agency. So how do you come to a middle ground of figuring out, what's best? We can't do it all in one day, but we can sit down and hash that through. But everything has to be on the table without that's not my job piece. That one just burns me.
Oh, that burns a lot of municipal leaders, and that's
It
coming
does.
from
Yeah.
someone as an outsider's perspective. Um, One of the big pieces of legislation that was introduced in 2024 from the provincial standard that influenced the municipalities was the mandatory code of conduct for municipal officials was introduced this year. You just recently had your convention. Did you hear any conversations around the new code of conduct and how it will impact municipalities going forward, or was this a win-win for municipalities?
Well, I was the chair of the Code of Conduct Working Group, so I want to say win-win. That's what I
Why
want
do you
to
think I
say.
asked
What
that question, Pam?
a darn brilliant idea that was. So I can tell you that it is a win-win-win right across the board. It doesn't mean that it's refined to the point where everything's perfect. We have 49 municipalities, hundreds of elected officials, which means, someone somewhere is going to see a different way that it can be done. And that's fair. So what the working group did was said, we will give it a 3-year timeline, get it up and running, get your investigators in place, get it rolling, see how it works, and then we can review after that and, add those pieces and take away those pieces that would perfect it even more. The issues that I heard were things like you can't appeal, but that's sort of true, but judicially you can do that. So there's a way to go about that process through the court system. Um, and a couple of other, smaller issues. How do we handle the investigator? We'll never be able to find one, which is not true. I've had emails from folks saying, wishing, for to be on a list for investigation,
What
little things like that.
I just want to jump in because whenever I speak to municipal leaders, I always ask them, what's the issue you're trying to solve here? What was the issue that this legislation was trying to solve or is going to try to solve going forward? Because we are seeing these types of legislations in Alberta, Saskatchewan, in British Columbia, I think in Ontario, they're legislated now as well. We're seeing code of conducts being popping up a lot because it's being required in from a Nova Scotia perspective, what issue were you trying to solve?
Oh gosh, you know what? You've learned something about me. I'm too blunt.
But I
Um,
like that's what I like about this conversation because the flip side of the question, and this is a conversation that we could probably spend about 2 hours on, but the flip side of the question is in those provinces that I mentioned, we are seeing the use of the code of conduct review, code of conduct allegations being weaponized. So, do you feel like the path forward for Nova Scotia will hinder those weaponization of the code of conduct allegations that people may use against their fellow councillors?
Absolutely. I think the first thing we were trying to get rid of what this is, for lack of a better word, I'm going to say ignorance.
Yeah.
We're adults sitting at a table with multi-million, sometimes billions of dollars in front of us to do with for the public. And we can't behave at a table. I mean, come on. That just for me, that just blows me away. That we're adults with that much on the line, and we can't be respectful of a system, and so we'll leave that apart, that aside. So the the weaponization at our table was hugely talked about, and we wanted to make sure that that wouldn't happen. So the process we put in place, we believe will stop that. If not, maybe a couple would get through, but there would be good reason for it getting through. So, the ability for the investigator to just say, like, this is vexatious, or, we're not going to deal with this because this is not a real code of conduct issue. So we did that. Then the ability, for it to be out in the public afterwards as well. So, that means the public's watching. They're watching, what you've done. They're watching if your friends at the table or your enemies at the table. I can't believe I have to say that, but you know, people don't like
Frenemies.
people.
We'll call them frenemies. Friends who are
Thank
enemies.
you. That's such a great, exactly. It's such a great, but it's not about people at the table. It's about issues. So let's get with the program, folks, and stop playing games that we shouldn't be playing. So yeah, so the
Well,
ability for it to be de-weaponized, we've done a tremendous job at that.
over the last 12 months, before we turn to 2025, I have one last area I want to talk about. And you mentioned it at the top of the interview. How have municipalities prepared for addressing the impacts of climate change? Because you talk about coastal erosion, and I know this has been a big concern for a lot of municipalities in your province. And as I speak to municipal leaders, it's not just coastal erosion, it's the effects of the hurricanes, it's effects of snowfall, because you're seeing an accumulation that you have never seen before. How do municipalities prepare for those extreme weather events that could dramatically impact their financial situation?
Yeah. So, right now, with the 49 municipalities, it was a huge issue at the conference, and everyone is going to have their own plan, which is so far, which doesn't make sense to me because it's the same issue. It's Nova Scotia. Everybody, most people live on the coast, so so we're going to have to make sure that it's mandated somehow. You have to have that coastal protection plan. You have to have a plan in place. If you're not prepared, if you fail to plan to fail, or backwards, whatever. My grandfather was the mayor when I was little, and he used to say that all the time. If you fail to plan, then you better plan to fail. So have that program in place. Enact it, make sure folks are aware of it. Your municipal planning strategy, your land use bylaw, all those things put together in a package are going to ensure that folks know, I can't build there. I can't put a business there. I have to be careful. And then, the emergency preparedness plans. And I love that our province is doing that piece they're putting under one roof. Don't ask me the name because I'm 63 and I just forgot the name of it, embarrassingly, but whatever, I'm honest. So, they're making sure that it's taken care of under one roof while we all still have our own plans and we're able to enact it. So, setting things up like people to come out and volunteer, because we know what happens when something goes wrong. Everyone wants to help, and that's fair game. Everyone wants to do something to help their neighbors, but we have to make sure that if you're not good with a chainsaw to go through the trees in a wildfire, you're not going to be on the chainsaw duty. It's common sense, but we want to have it written down and put in a way that folks understand what they can do and how they can step up. So I think it's pretty cool.
I'm just conscious of time and I want to turn to 2025. If I was hypothetically to give you a magic wand and you were able to wave it and get one thing accomplished in 2025 from a municipal perspective, what would that be?
You said you put me on the spot before. I would
Okay.
say,
Or what are the top two or three?
okay, I alluded to them before, and I would say housing is huge. Finding more ways to implement finding funds for municipal units, those types of things. So we signed an MOU. I'm not sure if you were aware of that, but we signed an
It was
MOU
one
with
of
the
the questions I was going to ask you about, but we're just cautious of time here. So, but if you
Oh,
want to talk
okay.
about that for a few seconds, sure.
Well, I will. The grants in lieu, it increased tax tools, municipal regionalization. How do we do things better together? Roads are always on the list, but when I go back to what people are saying when we knock on doors, it's the provincial issues of housing and healthcare, mental health, those big pieces, which we have no problem doing our part. We just need to make sure that we can sit down together and figure out, what those types of things are,
But doing your
just
part is
giving us
great.
more autonomy.
I'm going to be a little blunt with you, talking to the blunt mayor a little bit, but doing doing your part as a municipality is great. And understandably, the municipality does have a role to play in addressing housing.
Yes.
Scott Pierce, the former president of FCM, had the best quote when I was talking to him. He said, "You do not want to see a mayor going out and building a house. You want to see us
Oh,
building the
no.
infrastructure. The
Yes,
builders are the ones who are going in and building." Right now,
exactly.
we are in an economic uncertain era, and we are seeing high cost of living, high cost of goods, and that means housing is not being built as quickly as it once was. What do
Exactly.
municipalities need to do in 2025 to incentivize those builders to get back out there and start building? And I'm going to caveat that by saying not just in the large urban centers, but the smaller rural communities as well, because those are the areas that most people forget when we talk about housing. It's not just the larger urban centers, it's the smaller rural communities that need it as well.
Yeah. And when you're from Nova Scotia, the Atlantic provinces especially, we're little communities.
Mhm.
So what do we have to do? The way I always put it here is we as municipalities need to set the table, and we need to set the table in a beautiful way. So are we charging developers fees for, the paperwork? Just get rid of that. It's a few dollars. It doesn't matter. Refining the timelines on how long it takes to get through things. So I know we've done that here in our town, at least. We've done it, throughout the province in various places, but, shorten those timelines. Do we have parcels of land that we could, you know what? If people want housing, I know that we're supposed to sell at market value, but how do we get around that? And we find ways to make that happen. I've got a big parcel of land. Do you want this? Do we understand, like you said, the infrastructure? Like get that infrastructure in there. Nobody's building unless, there's infrastructure underground. So we have to be able to take on those pieces. And those are all always cost shared. I shouldn't say always, but usually cost shared with the federal government. In the case of housing, even more so, I would suggest, because they get how important that is.
It's the old analogy, and I feel like this is the analogy show because we're throwing them around so often. But it's what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Which comes first, the housing
Exactly.
developers or the
Yeah.
infrastructure? And in this case, it's always the infrastructure.
Yeah.
Going back to the original question, though, about 2025, are you hopeful with everything that is in place right now, with the new provincial government, re-elected provincial government, with the new, and I say this, and I was going to talk about this a little bit later earlier, but it just time didn't allow. But with the new crop of municipal councillors, mayors, because you had a big turnover in Nova Scotia as well, from a municipal standpoint, are you optimistic about what the future holds for 2025 in addressing some of these challenges and being able to say, I waved that magic wand and we were able to get some of these fixed?
I am absolutely hopeful. I'm hopeful because I do believe that we are all on the same page. Might be in a different paragraph, but that's okay because HRM is different from, a smaller unit, but we're all on the same page. And I think we're seeing, and hearing loudly and clearly that these are the issues that have to be solved, and everyone will come to the table and get that done. It'll take time, but we'll get her started.
So I'm gonna ask a local question now for yourself as the mayor of your community. What do you hope to get done for Yarmouth in 2025?
In 2025, I want to see, we have housing projects on the go. So I want to see, the shovel in the ground. We've already got one shovel in the ground. I want to see the other shovels in the ground. And, I can say we're doing a tremendous job, phew, of, cutting back the red tape and moving things quickly. So I'm excited for that. Get people in homes and, under a safe roof. That's what I'm hoping.
President Mood, Pam, I want to thank you so much for doing this. This has been an honor and pleasure for our first conversation to look back on 2024. Hopefully, this is not our last conversation, but I will say this, and it is happening this year. I've booked my plane tickets. I'm in Nova Scotia in the summer this year, so I'm coming to your community, and let's have a coffee on me in Yarmouth this year, okay?
I'm so in. I'm so in. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Municipal Affairs 2024 Year in Review. Now, we hope you've enjoyed today's exploration through Nova Scotia's 2024 and what's in store for 2025 in the province. Now, over the next few days, we will be having our last episodes of Municipal Affairs before our winter hiatus and return in January. So do not forget to subscribe, hit that follow button wherever you're listening to this on any platform audio wise. And if you're on YouTube right now, hit that subscribe button right below right now. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and we'll be back with another episode of Municipal Affairs. Till then, everyone.